Hello, this is the Bob Show, here with the Height Challenge. SoulSoBreezy.
Thanks.
So, how was your BlizzCon?
Oh, well, it was great. I got to meet up with a bunch of friends and guildmates. I ran into quite a few patrons and viewers as well.
Yeah, right. So, can you explain this picture of you by your lonesome during the con before the storm event?
Oh, yeah, that was just a joke picture that I took earlier.
There are reports that you were crying under your desk like a little bitch because no one cared to visit you.
No, I did that as just a joke, haha, funny.
I'm sure that in your pool of tears, yes, humor was your only escape.
What? This is exactly why you don't have your own show.
You heard it here, viewers. He projects his anxieties and is emotionally volatile.
Hey, it's Soul, and welcome back to another episode of Warcraft Weekly, the show that told you so. Today we're going to be covering more of my complete thoughts on BlizzCon 2019 as it pertains to the World of Warcraft. We'll talk about the recent 8.3 PTR build, and more, so check the navigation below if you want to skip around. It's been 1 week since BlizzCon 2019 when Sylvanas revealed that the toilet is upside down. World of Warcraft Shadowlands is coming to us in just about a year, but not before we reach the epic conclusion of the battle for Azeroth. Finally. Seriously though, there is still a lot to look forward to in the next coming months, but first let's run that ticker up top. These are some of the biggest sponsors that make this channel happen, so join us and make this channel bigger and badasser and...
Bobber. More bobber.
Wait, what does a bobber even mean?
I want you to make a fanny pack shaped like me and wear that to the next BlizzCon.
That's like disturbingly specific. But anyway, I want to welcome Jim and Jerry and Ari. Let's give them a warm welcome. 3, 2, 1, go. Let's move on. In WoW Classic news, Blizzard announced the last round of free realm transfers before Phase 2 of Classic begins on November 14th, which is next Thursday. Some people are excited to have more to do than 1 hour Molten Core clears, but many are concerned about the age-old problem of faction imbalance. The forums have been on fire with really useful feedback like,
Blizzard is legit run by morons these days.
Please consider faction imbalance.
Blizzard is retarded. And here's a post that tries to turn it back onto the players. They're listening. You people are simply refusing to do anything about it. You have the means to transfer. If you don't, that's on you. If hundreds of 1,000s of players roll Horde edgelords, knowing full well that Horde will be overpopulated and ergo they will sit in wildly long-ass BG queues and world PvP will be scarce, if at all, since no one wants to face off in a 5v100 situation, then that's your own fault. That's on you. If you sit in a 10,000 player queue waiting to log in, that's on you too. They gave you an out. You refused to use it. You had 15 years of digital history to give you a frickin' heads up. You refused to heed the lessons of history. You made your own bed. Now lie in it, because the rest of us are tired of hearing your endless whining and are trying to push your own personal accountability off on Blizzard because you're either too lazy, stupid, or just plain old ignorant. Once again, no, I did not write this. I might have inspired it, but I didn't write this. There are probably things Blizzard can do to make faction imbalance a little bit better, but this guy does have kind of a point. Not a lot of people want to be on the losing side.
Yeah, I'm here against my will.
I don't think trying to control faction balance directly is a good idea though, because it doesn't seem right if you and your friends want to transfer from a high pop to a low pop server, but you can't because the low pop server's faction is balanced too heavily in your favor. Transfers or not though, people are going to go where they want. I've been all for at least having a little bit more transparency so people can at least be informed. I'll throw up this mock-up that I posted on Twitter a couple months ago. It tells players basic information without having to make a character and ask in trade chat because obviously that's so reliable. But anyway, how much of a panic are you in for Phase 2? Let me know in a comment below. So I've talked about Shadowlands this week in a number of videos. As a kind of experiment, I released 2 videos simultaneously, what I liked and what I didn't like about the Shadowlands announcement. Guess which one got more views?
Surprise, surprise.
It was different because I wasn't exactly in character. I always try to give my usual round of mixed viewpoints, and it was very apparent that even though I clearly said I made 2 videos, there was a good handful of comments that unjokingly called me out as a shill or a cynic or both. What? So let me get a little bit more into what I really think about WoW Shadowlands, at least so far, 1 week after the initial announcement. So you should probably be mostly familiar with the announcement and all the news that's been coming in with the general features. So Bob, can you take a break?
Wait, what?
Yeah, I'm gonna go off script. It doesn't quite work when we're doing this whole back and forth.
Oh, you don't want me stealing your thunder.
Yes, can you please allow me to grow, senpai?
Very well. I hope they don't tear you apart without me.
When it comes to the lore, I've noticed that a lot of people are really transfixed on Sylvanas. Sylvanas this, Sylvanas that, Sylvanas versus the Lich King. Wow, she totally whooped his ass and so on and so forth. There's a lot of focus on her, and it's not surprising. We know her. Some of us are almost obsessed with her. But the star of World of Warcraft Shadowlands isn't the person who ripped off the Lich King's helmet. It's the thing that she helped to reveal. The star of Shadowlands is the Shadowlands. What's arguably got me most excited about this expansion is that we're going to a brand new place that we haven't seen before. It's not just a new land, it's a system, a cosmic system that will show us just how things work in the World of Warcraft universe. We're going to look at not just the realm of death, but the system of death, and that's really interesting. Sylvanas Windrunner is just one character. She's like a door that's waiting to be closed. In the meantime, though, we're going to learn about these 4 covenants and how they connect to Azeroth as a whole. How did the Night Fae connect to the wild gods and their life and death and real-life cycle? What are the actual origins of the Scourge and the Helm of Domination and Frostmourne? Is it going to turn out that those iconic weapons and artifacts are actually, just green gear? that's throwaway stuff. We're also going to get into the origins of the Valkyr, which will no doubt lead us into more lore that will tie us back to the likes of Odin and Helya, who have been pretty much non-existent in the BFA expansion. And we're going to find out about the Venthyr, which I have no idea what this is about. They don't seem to relate to anything that currently exists in the Warcraft universe other than, hey, Kael'thas is coming back, that's pretty cool. And on top of that, we're going to look at the lore of these cosmic monoliths. What the heck is the Jailer, the Arbiter, Torghast, the Maw? How does all this tie in together? What does it all mean? But what I'm scared of too is the notion of visiting all sorts of different characters who we've said goodbye to throughout the Warcraft franchise. We're going to see Uther and Kael'thas and Draka and who knows who else. My fear with something like this, with visiting the Realm of Death, is that there's the possibility of meeting anybody, and with that possibility comes the expectation. So by the end of this Shadowlands expansion, we're going to sit down with ourselves and think, oh, you know what, it would have been really cool if we saw such and such person, or man, it's a big shame that this other person never showed up at all. And the conclusion of the Shadowlands storyline is going to, at least the way I see it, it's going to have to definitively divide the living and the dead realms, because otherwise death is going to feel that much less precious by the time we're done with the story. If the barriers between life and death are as open as this rift that's above Icecrown, and if it stays like that, a lot of the sense of urgency in these smaller Warcraft stories aren't going to feel very impactful. Alright, so with leveling, there's a lot to unpack, because there's like 3 kinds of leveling that we're going to have in the World of Warcraft going forward. One is easy to understand. It's the 1 through 10 experience that goes on over at Exile's Reach, which is off the course of Stormheim. We go through this starting area, we get to the end, and then the world really opens up for us. The 10 through 50 experience is going to be a choose-your-own adventure. You can choose between Vanilla and Wrath and BC and pretty much all the other expansions until you get to level 60 when you get to the Shadowlands expansion. But then, what happens after that? One of the immediate concerns that I have that I would love to see the developers address at some point very soon is what is going to happen to the Shadowlands and the 1 through 50 experience. What's going to be altered there? Are we going to see something like, okay, 1 through 10, Exile's Reach, 10 through 50 is a bunch of expansions, 50 to 60 is Shadowlands, and then after that, do we do something like that? Or does Shadowlands get lifted and plopped into this 1 through 50 experience, and then now Shadowlands is this optional thing that we can choose if we roll an alt? It sounds fascinating, but it sounds really scary too, because this sets the stage for the max level in the world of Warcraft to always be 60. So 11 expansions from now, the first 10 expansions are going to be this level 10 through 50 experience, and the latest expansion is always going to be an experience from level 50 to 60. Is that always going to be a thing? Whether it is or not is going to be a question to be debated and answered later, hopefully. But in the meantime, the system as it is right now, it seems really cool. WoW is so freaking big that there is no way that you can meaningfully play through every single expansion from vanilla to Shadowlands and all that in a reasonable amount of time. Now keep in mind, that's a design decision. Blizzard could have forced everyone to go in a certain order, play through every expansion from start to finish, at least with a leveling experience, so that it would potentially take months to get from level 1 to whatever level that we're going to get to later. By going this route though, Blizzard is really reaching out to us players and be like, hey, you know what? Maybe you should roll a couple of alts. So I think I am legitimately excited about this. I'm also super stoked about the way alts are going to be handled in Shadowlands itself. I'm not quite as fond though of going to the sort of on-rails experience that we had. I guess the last time we had that was in Warlords of Draenor, where for the most part, we went through this set path from one zone to the next to the next. But unlike Warlords of Draenor, both the Horde and Alliance are going to start in the same place, and we're all going to be following each other. It's going to be great in war mode, I'm sure. According to statements by Blizzard, though, they said that they feel comfortable with that the technology that they have now will let them be able to handle all these things without huge bottlenecks. But it's playing with alts that's going to give players much more freedom to choose the kinds of zones that they want to level in the order that they want to, which is going to be a much more familiar. It's going to feel like Legion or Battle for Azeroth. On top of that, you'll also immediately get access to all the endgame systems like Covenants, as well as world quests, and whatever the heck else is supposed to happen at Endgame. So I like that. Your first go through the Shadowlands is going to be a very curated, handcrafted experience. Your experiences after that, who gives a shit? Just do what you want. Does the Shadowlands expansion lack features? It's something that the forums are having a total field day talking about and debating and bitching over. Those kinds of folks are saying that Shadowlands doesn't have any content, as if there's going to be no dungeons, no raids, or anything like that. I obviously haven't played through the expansion's leveling experience yet, but from the feel of it, leveling is going to slowly introduce us to what the Covenant system is all about, like trying out the unique class ability or the shared Covenant ability, and I'm not quite sure if we're also going to explore Soulbinds at that point. And it doesn't feel like we're going to be entering Torghast, the endless dungeon, while we're leveling either. So I get it, on our first time through it's going to feel pretty feature light, but at least with BFA, what did we have back then? Islands? Yeah. A couple of boat missions while leveling, little bits of the war campaign that unlocked each of the other zones. But once we hit endgame, it all opens up. And it doesn't just open up, it opens up for our alts too. So our second time around, then it's going to feel like a much meatier experience, because it's like, oh, what are we gonna do, boys? Are we gonna do like some of this Covenant stuff? Are we gonna do zone stuff? Are we going to do world quests? What is it, guys? Not having another class also makes the expansion sound a little bit empty, unless you just don't care about a new class anyway. For example, in Legion, we had all these artifacts and class quest lines and other class-related stuff, and a new class with a Demon Hunter. But what if you only really played 1 or 2 classes anyway? Then you're missing out on all that other stuff that you might feel compelled to do, or you may just not care to do anyway, and so your Legion experience will feel much more narrow, depending on how much you want to soak in. When it comes to Covenants though, on your first playthrough, you will experience all of them. And anyone can join any Covenants. Covenants are for everybody. It's designed for everyone to maybe use it. And even after choosing a covenant, you can change it, albeit with great effort. So this kind of underlines the point that covenants are in fact for everybody. Torghast, the Endless Dungeon, is a lot of what island expeditions are not. It can be solo, it can be group, you can have 1 to 5 players. It delivers on the promise of actual rewards, progression content, and it's randomly generated from layout to mob to the kind of things that drop to the anima bonuses that you get. And it's not timed. There's no sense of urgency, so if it's successful, Torghast is like a throwback or a return to dungeon crawl, as opposed to a dungeon run, which is what we've become so accustomed to in WoW with Heroics and Mythic Plus and so on. Now, when it comes to Endgame, like your daily routine, once you have yourself up and situated and everything, how are Covenants and Torghast going to hold up, really? Covenants are going to be compared to earlier features. I mean, they shouldn't be, but we know that they will be. Covenants seem to be like an all-in-one thing, so they're going to be compared to the class campaign and Azeroth gear, artifacts. It's a lot to replace. But here's something to consider, though. When comparing Covenants to Order Halls, at some point I want to feel like I'm finished. I want to get to the bottom of the tree. I want to get to that spot where I can graduate from certain content and then move on to other things. I don't want to feel like I'm missing out. I don't want to feel like I'm being left behind. I don't want to feel like I'm reliant on some mathematical sorcery like artifact knowledge to keep me caught up with my friends. We know that Warfronts aren't going to come back and that Torghast is pretty much the opposite of island expeditions, but I'm really excited about Torghast. 2 years ago, I remember walking away from the Battle for Azeroth reveal with a lot of questions on how Warfronts and islands are going to work. And along with that, even after I had some of those questions answered, I was still left with some doubts as to whether or not those things are going to be successful, because I've never tried anything like that before. With Torghast, though, I'm coming away cautiously optimistic, but much more confident than I did 2 years ago, because I'm more familiar with roguelike games. And we've seen Blizzard dance with this idea with the training, the Chromie scenario, and in a couple of months, we're going to see it in 8.3 with this whole horrific vision feature. So I don't mind that I'm not going to be pulled in so many different directions. Oh, I gotta do my Warfront. I feel compelled to do island expeditions. Oh, that's right, someone wants me to help out with a Mythic Plus. I never help with Mythic Plus. The endgame in Shadowlands seems to be a lot more focused and targeted on certain activities, and my hopes and expectations are that these activities are just going to be fun and fulfilling and repeatable. And it looks like the design of some of these things is really meant to deliver on that. But when it comes to class design, this is where I'm probably the most skeptic, because there are certain expectations that I had that just weren't met. I said earlier this week that the Great Unpruning sets the stage for a much bigger class revamp in the future, at least. And maybe this is the more responsible way to go, because if we went through with what I wanted, if they just suddenly gutted the talent system and turned classes upside down, maybe that would be too much for players, and I totally understand that. But so far, all we're hearing about is the Unpruning and Covenants and Soulbinds, and those two things are just expansion features. So I'm probably going to talk about this a little bit more next week. I'm going to pitch some ideas about the possible future of the World of Warcraft, and I'm going to revisit a crazy idea that I had about a full class revamp and go all in. So I'm straight up going to try to sell you on this kind of design and just keep bringing it up to see if it actually happens in the future. Anyway, those are some of my more extended thoughts on Shadowlands so far. I know it's kind of weird throwing this into the weekly, but let me know your thoughts in a comment below. This week marks the beginning of World of Warcraft's 15-year anniversary events, and Blizzard is pulling out all the stops. Unlike previous anniversary events that only lasted about 2 weeks, this time it's going to last all the way up until January. 2 months of this shit. 2 months of endless Alterac Valley, increased XP and reputation bonuses, and this anniversary raid event that it was not what I expected. Yeah, I guess that's a nice way of putting it. I gotta say, given that we have 2 months to complete this whole anniversary raid event, I was really under the impression that we would do the complete fights for the likes of Hygen, Kael'thas, Ragnaros, and so on. Maybe the mechanics wouldn't change, but perhaps the numbers would go down, kind of like what they did with the Molten Core event. Instead, it was just weird. It's like Zerg the boss, see if you survive, and then you're done. That's it. My guild got a special treat when fighting Ragnaros. We were time warped back and forth every like 5 or 10 seconds, so that was really special. But even if that didn't live up to my expectations, the anniversary raid was just one blip in the past several months of the World of Warcraft or the Warcraft franchise that have been nothing short of this grand celebration. Like, what have we had in the past couple months? We've had WoW Classic. Woo! We had patch 825. We had BlizzCon and the announcement of the Shadowlands expansion. We have these 15-year anniversary things, and for the next 2 or so months, we get to kind of let it all soak in, give it time to breathe, take in all the news. And then we get into the holiday stuff, with holiday sales and that charity pet that's probably going to come out. We got 8.3 PTR testing to continue to do and bitch about. And then a holiday break. Merry Christmas. I'm going to Disneyland. And then we're back into it again with patch 8.3, and then season 4, and then the Shadowlands alpha, and the beta, and maybe, just maybe, although I don't think it's going to happen, but maybe we'll get patch 835. It's just a really, really exciting time to be a WoW fan. Anyway, speaking of 8.3, a new build was deployed this week, and there was a lot added, while our characters were wiped the heck out to give us a better idea of how patch 8.3's game systems are going to work. And right now, it feels a whole lot better than it did earlier when we were pumping ourselves full of corrupted gear and crying about that. It appears that most of the questlines are now in place. The campaign to save Azeroth from the threat of N'Zoth begins. And I have some non-spoiler impressions. I mean, after all, WoW Shadowlands is now public information, so spoiler alert.
We're gonna win?
What? No way.
You can't really compare this particular campaign to the one on Argus, because Antorus, which was the final raid of Legion, that launched 3 months after patch 7.3. It's expected that season 4 of Battle for Azeroth is going to start just a couple of weeks after the patch drops. Continuing the comparison, Argus was a set of 3 mini-zones, while today in BFA we're going to see a kind of revamp of Uldum, as well as the Vale of Eternal Blossoms in Pandaria. It may not be the same level of effort, but it is nice to revisit these zones and see them be redefined. It's like Blizzard breathing new life into places that we just haven't had a good reason to visit in a long time. What I think the N'Zoth campaign successfully does is bring context to what we've been testing out so far. It's pretty straightforward, and it gets us into all the features of this patch without too much filler. We're going to learn about what are these visions that we're diving into, and just how threatening they are without the help of Rathian, the Cloak Factory. We're going to find out these new factions that we're working with, as well as discover whether or not this crazy-ass plan to end N'Zoth is going to make sense. The impression it's left on me so far is, yeah, this is turning out to be a pretty solid pre-season event before Ny'alotha, the last raid, opens up. And there are still a few more updates on the 8.3 PTR to fill you in on. The upcoming Mythic Plus season is going to give a more proper reward structure, including a title called The Awakened and a mount that is absolutely hideous.
Oh my, look, it's hentai.
No, it's not hentai, but you can leave that mosaic up there, thanks. Also, while your dream of account-wide essences doesn't seem like it's gonna come true, Blizzard is at least going to lower the requirements for essences that need reputation. The essences for Nazjatar and Mechagon have had the reputation requirements lowered by an entire level. And account-wide tokens similar to the one in Mechagon, well, those are going to be introduced to Nazjatar as well. But now let's get into some predictions and speculation about the future. So, I said this months ago, and I've been saying it a lot. Maybe you can say that I was conditioning you to be prepared for this news.
Much like how I've grown on you, like a malignant growth, and if you try to remove me, you will die.
Yeah, that's really swell, but it's now super official. Super official that patch 8.3 is not going to come out until probably early January of 2020. That means by then we'll have enjoyed the Eternal Palace for at least 6 months. It's kind of a long time, yeah, but consider this. Shadowlands is already out on pre-order, and it's scheduled to release no later than the end of 2020. So that's going to mean that Ny'alotha will be open for us for a little bit less than a year. By comparison, the gap between the Antorus raid and Battle for Azeroth's launch was 9 months. So we're kind of on track. The question that will close that gap even further will be whether or not Shadowlands is going to launch before or after BlizzCon. WoW expansions have been launching before November for a good number of expansions now, and this might not be any different. Frankly, it's too early to make a good guess, but I'm going to make one anyway. I'll just stick with a launch date of late August for WoW Shadowlands. So here's how I came to this conclusion. Now, patch 8.3 is pretty meaty, but Blizzard isn't making 3 zones from scratch. I think that the art team at this point is working pretty hard on Shadowlands content. Considering the Shadowlands itself, yeah, I bet that there is a ton of work to be done, but I don't think the work that is going into Covenants and Torghast is going to be as intense as the work that went into creating warfronts and island expeditions. If the Battle for Azeroth was about designing and inventing brand new technology, Shadowlands is about iteration and refining. Maybe there are going to be fewer bottlenecks in Shadowlands development. What that'll mean for us, the players, is that the kind of content in Shadowlands, I hope, will be of greater quality, and we'll get a better cadence of content similar to Legion's old patch schedule, whatever that was, 11 weeks, I believe? So that sort of wraps up the news, but I do at least want to talk about, hey, I went to BlizzCon, woo! Going to BlizzCon is such a treat, because it's one thing for us to unite as gamers on like a WoW forum and where we all talk about the world of Warcraft or take a dump all over it. But thanks to different barriers of entry and all that, the kinds of people that you see over at BlizzCon, they're all such high energy, super positive. It's really uplifting to be around just about everyone who's there, even if sometimes we might see something that will be like, oh, boo, and all that stuff. It's a different kind of shared energy that, for the most part, it feels really good. It's a very, very different feeling when you are sitting with thousands and thousands of people all watching this Shadowlands opening cinematic at once, when we're seeing the little bits, when we're seeing the camera pan down and we see Icecrown Citadel in its full super high definition look. It's amazing. This is my 10th year going to BlizzCon, but I think it was my 3rd as a content creator of any importance. So being stopped randomly by people, or having my shoulder tapped and being asked for an autograph, like there were 2 people who asked for an autograph, and both times I was like, It's amazing though, to see people who know you, but you don't know them, but they appreciate the things that you do, but you don't know them. Also, meeting up with fellow content creators like, and I hope I don't forget anyone, like Pyromancer and Haruma Red X, Eva Wow, Laurentium, Taliesin and Nevatel, Mistledyne, and God, shoot me for the people that I forgot. Being around these people all bright-eyed and eager to like meet other people or to do interviews and talk with other people, it's weird because it's like, wow, I feel like I'm even more than last year, I feel like I'm a part of it. I'm a part of this system. And I don't know how to describe it, but it was when I walked into the interviews that I felt like I made it. Like I was preparing for it for like weeks. You guys have seen me taking in questions and things like that. And the hours leading up to the group interview that I did, it was like right after the deep dive panel. So I'm like checking up questions, rewriting things. I'm like tapping away on the laptop. And then when I sat down and did it, I kicked ass. It was, I was proud of myself for that one, you know, because I was so scared last year. that I just walked away. I couldn't do it. And then this time around, I was so angry that I was like, motherfucker, I'm gonna do this, all right? I'm gonna do it this time. And I did. Mistledine was there. And I was like kind of gushing afterwards. I'm like, oh man, I never did this before. And he's like, oh no. He said something like, it doesn't show, man. You kicked ass out there. And I shook hands with Frank Kalkowski, and he said the same thing. He's like, yeah, you did great. You did absolutely great. And I'm pumped. Just thinking about that right now, I'm so pumped. I want to do it again. I want to tweet at people and bug the crap out of them until they mute me. I want to be able to talk with more of these developers and try to get in their heads, so that way I can get some cool information that we could all share and react to and complain about. So already I've got BlizzCon goals for next year, and maybe they'll include like a Bob fanny pack or something like that.
Yay.
Yeah. Of course, I want to get a media badge again, but I don't think I need to do anything extra to do that, but I definitely want to do more with that privilege. So that's going to mean working extra hard on the channel, so that way I can successfully book interviews like the ones that Bay and Preach did. So I can sit down, instead of a big group interview, it'll just be kind of like a 2-on-2 sort of deal. I want to stream on the show floor and share with you folks at home and on the toilet just what it is that we're playing now. Here's what we're doing. Let me showcase some of this cool stuff to you. And I didn't want to do it this year because mentally I just didn't feel ready to do it. But I think this time I just won't mind if I were to, during BlizzCon, I'll say, hey, you know what, I'm going to be at such and such location, or I'll be like by the food trucks or whatever. So if anyone did want to come and say hi, feel free, and just kind of make myself leave my position known and exposed. But in order to do any of that, I need to sustain myself. I've got to grow. I've got to grow. I got to get bigger. I got to get badder. Well, okay, not that kind of badder, but I got to get gooder. There we go. I got to get bigger and gooder. So I'm going to do my part. Work better, try to give you better quality stuff, cooler visuals and other such things. But I'm going to need a little bit of your help too, with just getting some more exposure out there. So don't be shy about sharing the content or talking about the ideas that I have and things like that. Oh yeah, that Soul dude, he talks about player housing so much, what a cuck. Take a look at his video and those little things help out so much, because if a couple of you do it and then a couple more and a couple more, that's how you blow up. So don't be shy about interacting with me over on the comments or on our Discord channel or on Twitter. Swing by the Twitch channel too. I know I'm like still kind of bad on that, but I'm going to do my best to improve. So with all that said, in what I think is probably the longest weekly that I've ever recorded, let's wrap things up. I'm going to be doing some more 8.3 coverage while I poke around and prod at class design ideas, some ridiculous stuff, fan fiction design, I guess is what I'll call it. So stay tuned for all of that. Make sure that you show a little bit of love and subscribe to the channel. Like the video if you enjoyed yourself, and just keep sending your supports, whatever it is that you do, so I can keep giving you more of this and all things Warcraft. I'll see you later. Until then, stay safe, stay happy, and stay breezy.